Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank and Chase Commercial Term Lending, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
Office buildings, studios, hotels, retail, condominiums, apartments, everything is being built in New York City. So today I've assembled a group of developers who it's in their DNA to develop, it's like a shot in their arm, who are developing all this type of properties in 5 different boroughs of New York City. So my guests today are Douglas Steiner, who is the chairman of Steiner Studios and Steiner NYC, Mitch Rutter, who's the CEO of Essex Capital Partners, Joseph Cohen is a principal at East
River Partners, yeah.
East River Partners, and last but not least, my buddy Lester Petracca, who is the CEO of Triangle Equities. So now your family and you originally came from New Jersey roots. Did you get permits to come over to New York to do all this development today?
The Navy Yard was like, it's like the same view as from the Pulaski Skyway, which I love.
So did you go by ferry or did you go by car?
Car.
Okay. So tell me what you're doing today in different type of developments, because there's so much new developments taking place, and you're on the cusp of a number of them.
The studios is in expansion mode for the next 10 years. At full build-out will be 60 acres. Right now we're finishing up a graduate school for CUNY for Brooklyn College, graduate film school on the lot. We'll be building out also a graduate school for Carnegie Mellon on the lot. In a couple months we're starting our next stages, another 6 stages.
So are you the landlord on those buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another 6 stages along Kent Avenue, but within the yard. We have a large high-rise residential building, 80-20, across from BAM, Schermerhorn, 3rd, Flatbush, Nevins, and Livingston. The Hub. 750 units, 54 stories, and we will be breaking ground in the next few months on a condominium building in the East Village on Avenue A from 11th to 12th Street, 80 units.
And Mitch, what are you doing?
We've just broken ground on a 100-unit building in the border of Bushwick and Ridgewood. We're very, very focused on pursuing opportunities that are being driven by what I call the creative economy of New York. New York now is no longer reliant on financial services, and we're following the millennials as they can't afford to pay rent in Manhattan and Williamsburg and move along the key subway lines.
So what does somebody pay? What do you project the rent's going to be in the Ridgewood, Bushwick section over there?
We had underwritten the deal at pretty conservative numbers. I would say right now, and there was an article today in the Queens Courier, rents are going to approach the mid to high 40s.
And what are the rents in downtown Brooklyn that you're projecting?
We think $65 for our building. We're amenity rich.
Now, and what about in the price of the units in
East Village? I think we will reach $2,300.
Is what your projections?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, we have 4 projects underway, all of them residential condo. We've got 2 in Manhattan and 2 in Brooklyn. In Manhattan, we're converting 3 adjacent mansions on West 86th Street and Broadway to 3, 4, 5-bedroom apartments, so spacious family-sized apartments. In the East Village, we're converting a beautiful old synagogue on East 6th Street and First Avenue. We'll have a synagogue in the first floor, and then we'll have 3 large loft-style apartments above it. And in Brooklyn, we're continuing to build family-sized apartments in Park Slope on 10th Street, and then in Fort Greene, which is really just an amazing, dynamic neighborhood. We're building 2 adjacent buildings on South Oxford and South Portland, about a block and a half, 2 blocks from Barclays.
And Lester, you're going into a couple of boroughs, and as opposed to mostly the residential, I mean, with the exception of what Doug is doing, at the Navy Yard, you're doing a variety of unique things.
Yeah, we do a little bit of a mixed bag. We're finishing up right now up on 149th Street in the Bronx, 88,000 square feet, 2 levels with parking on the roof. The development's anchored by the Metropolitan College. Fine Fair is also a tenant. We're in final negotiations on a gym, Vista Care, Boston Markets, and we have a few more that we're very active negotiations on. And that'll be finishing up in May. Then we're looking to break ground in Staten Island, as you know, which is a 2-phase development. First phase is about 85,000 square feet of retail and 100 rental apartments at the base of the Staten Island Ferry. And as I think you're also aware, there's a great deal of development going on, basically about $1 billion.
Right, the Wheel, which is a $500 million.
Then you've got BFC and the
outlet centers.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have our project, which is Lighthouse Point. Phase 2 is a 160 room hotel, and there are 6 historic buildings that need to be renovated.
And you mentioned in the green room that you're working on something out in Long Island.
Yes, we have 83 units of housing going out there. There are 80 of 55 and over in the town of Huntington.
You know, it's interesting. Years ago, when I was writing an article and talking about 55 and older, you weren't interested in the 55 and older.
I wasn't 55 then, Mike.
Ooh.
But yeah, no. Look, there is such
rental or for sale.
No, for sale condo. There is such a shortage of that product out in that area of Long Island. It's not funny. I mean, our waiting list is substantial. People are looking to downsize, and they're looking to stay in the same area, and there's not a lot of that product there.
People who move to Florida, perhaps, they want to be with their families. So some of those people are going to go to downtown Brooklyn. I don't think they're going to go with the millenniums or going to Ridgewood or Bushwick, but they are going to downtown Brooklyn, and they're looking around because they want to have the amenities and the community over here. So here I hear all this development. In order to develop, you have a couple of other variables that one has to take into place. The cost of construction has increased so substantially. That's one. And the accessibility of capital, the banking. Has it been difficult, or how do you see the banking environment for development today?
I think for the right product, there's plenty of capital, surplus of capital available. And the market's awash in liquidity. I think within certain submarkets, that'll tighten up quite a bit, given fears of overbuilding.
I would say that there's no shortage of construction loans. The question is how plentiful they'll continue to be for condominium development. As rental developers on the residential side, we've had no issue in finding construction loans.
Joe?
Yeah, I would say that's the case with us as well, that we've gotten financed for all the projects we have underway. We've raised a new fund. We have an opportunity fund to go out and do more development. And we're finding that it's more difficult today to get construction lending than we thought it would be. I felt like 2015 started, and I started to see that some of the lenders, especially on the for-sale housing, were starting to pull back.
Right, because unfortunately, people read the press, and some of the press is talking about different markets and the price points and so on.
We're not finding any problem with capital, as Doug said, for the right product. We're not having a problem at all. And you're right, the construction numbers are going up. The industry is busy. We're bringing people in to look at, for example, the Lighthouse Point deal, and nobody wants to do a complete takeoff. They want conceptual buildings, drawings. They want to give you a number, and they want to work perhaps to a GMP. So they're busy, and the question is why work on your project? Why be an estimating service for somebody when they're so busy? So that's what I see as a problem. And the pricing of the land today it tends to be for condos.
And as I was joking at the beginning of the show, saying developers have this in their DNA to develop. Price per land. The week before, I did a show on nonprofits shedding their real estate assets because they can use it for working capital, they can use it for other purposes. But, when the Bible Society on Broadway sells for $1,000 a square foot, when properties on Park Avenue South sell for $800 a foot, and when land is selling at this price, you couldn't build downtown Brooklyn if you were paying today's market rates.
I can only build it as rental because I'm in for $60 a foot. And I went to contract just at the end of the downturn.
So that's the conundrum. Our mayor correctly says we need more affordable housing, but by constantly speaking about it and not announcing his plan, two things have happened. First, no developer can figure out how to price what his average rental will be through the building because you don't know what the requirement is for the affordability component. Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it 40? But it's had another effect that I see, and it's quite exasperating. Every potential seller, we're not just residential developers. We do office. We reposition office buildings. So we go into M zones and look at creating new office space. And every seller thinks that he has a residential site because the mayor's spoken of rezoning. So they no longer quote residential prices. I'm sorry, they quote a residential buy price,
right,
not a manufacturing
area that's
price.
in a manufacturing area.
So I think the market has slowed now on the land transfer side until things become a little more clear.
What's your thought about the Bronx? I mean, Lester is in the Bronx on this the hub project, and there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago, and also there's a lot of discussion about people thinking about the Bronx, should treat Somerset Park and there's other people over there. Do you see more development, or is it most of the development which has been done in the Bronx in the past was because the land was cheaper? But when prices go up, how much development do you see over there in the Bronx?
We've been bullish on the Bronx for a while, and we own 3 properties there. So and 149th Street, I think the retailers we've not really gotten the rents that we think we deserve, and I think they're going to realize in time that it's a great market, and it's just off 3rd Avenue. And we're getting good rents there. I mean, we're probably averaging, $45, $50 a foot on the retail.
Now, in your property in downtown Brooklyn, are you going to have retail also?
We are. We're about 30,000 feet of retail broken up into smaller units.
Now, and you're closer to Brooklyn Academy of Music over there? Or?
Diagonally across the street.
People are sitting quietly today saying, I don't know if I can build because we don't know what's going to happen in June with the 421As, which are tax comments. Somebody who's been on my show numerous times, David Kramer, there was an article that he published in in the Daily News saying that we have to have tax abatements. I mean, could you build without tax abatements?
I'm a huge fan of 421A. I think that was part of what made Brooklyn just zoom in terms of its renaissance. And I think you can't afford not to have the tax abatements because the assessment system is so screwed up in New York. It kills rental without it.
We have the Staten Island project without the 421A. It doesn't pencil. We just went into we're starting to do closings on a condo in Flushing without the 421A. Doesn't pencil. So tax abatements are an absolute necessity.
You didn't talk about Flushing. What are you doing in Flushing?
You didn't give me a chance to finish, Mike.
Oh, I didn't? So tell me what you're doing in Flushing.
We're doing a luxury condo there. It's only 19 units. It was a busted deal.
Did you make sure that you did the feng shui?
It's a beautiful building, and we took it over. It was a busted deal, and we completed it out. We got our TC of O about a week ago, and we're starting closings.
But that's a for sale condo. But for
Yes.
my viewers who aren't on the inside baseball, why doesn't somebody try to explain what the 421A is? Whoever wants to, Mitch, Joe, anyone?
421A is a program that was already renewed once a few years ago with limitations. You get a tax abatement if you provide, under the program which is expiring, 20% of the units affordable. And therefore, at that point, your assessment is at the land assessment. It's either a 15-year abatement or a 25-year abatement. So it either runs for 10 and then phases in over the last 5, or 20 and phases in over the last 5. I could tell you that without some tax abatement, particularly where land prices are, buildings won't pencil as a rental. It's going to force the opposite effect of what the city wants. They want more housing, more middle-class housing, more affordable housing. It's going to wind up fostering only the development of condominiums for the wealthy.
I remember when I did shows a number of years ago, and when the New York Times specifically had advertisements that people in the real estate section, there were all these articles, 421A tax abatement for these condominiums. And people would only, people looked at what the monthly payment was, and the 421A was the incentive. Today, there are numerous condominiums that are in the city in various stages of development that do not have the 421A, and people just, some developers have said to me, they're absorbing this. It's a different thing.
Yeah, listen, all of our projects were being developed, after 421A expired. So we've lived that experience. The buyers are looking what their monthly nut would be, including their taxes, maintenance, and whatever their interest payments would be. And for the projects that we're building, they're ultimately in it for less than what they would be paying as rent.
The reason was, a number of years ago, we didn't have mortgage rates of 3%.
Yeah.
So, when somebody was looking at it this way, they were looking at a 6% mortgage rate, and, so the combining effect over there.
I think you have to really look at it, though. Many of the buyers in our projects don't come with a mortgage at all, maybe 50%. So that's pretty common in New York, that people are looking at these places as a place to live, and there are very few opportunities if you're looking in the Upper West Side or the Park Slope area. I just don't see that much opportunity to buy something with a 421A abatement that makes sense.
So in the 5 boroughs, where do you see opportunities for you to develop in the future? I mean, all types of development, because New York City is still under retail, okay? There's a need for more retail in many places over there, probably in the Ridgewood, Bushwick section. Do you think that there are the opportunities, near Aqueduct Racetrack, where they have the casino over there? I mean,
I don't. That's not where our focus is. Our focus is based upon more of a macro analysis. I see what I call a push-pull. People are being, first of all, when a kid gets out of college and he gets a job in New York, he gets congratulated. But he's not getting congratulated as heartily if he's going to Philadelphia. And so the first thing I want to say is New York has succeeded and will continue to succeed. It's replaced its old base with tech. 30% of the jobs now, 30% of the workforce in America are untethered. It's part of the creative class, and that's supposed to rise to 50% by 2020. There's 45 million people now. So those are the people that we're following. And that means that those who cannot be within the actual 24/7 city of New York because they didn't get the job at Google, then they still need to be accessible to that 24/7 environment, and they will have to be, they're being pushed to some of the outskirts along the L line, such as Bushwick, such as Ridgewood. It had been Williamsburg, it's too expensive. So we see opportunity all along those fringe areas, a few stops out of the city. The pull is that once these neighborhoods begin to develop, they themselves, the neighborhoods themselves, become an attraction. So in Queens, for instance, you have diversity, you have walkability, you have culture. So we're looking more and more in Queens. We're looking more and more along subway stops that are easily accessible into Roosevelt Island and Manhattan. And we're also looking not just at residential, but at the provision of office space that is going to be coming as rents spike in the areas just closer into the city. So you have, and you see it, you see Vornado purchasing a building in Long Island City. You've seen RXR purchase the Standard Motors building.
There are benefits, but the big question on Long Island City for office, people don't realize. I have a friend in the catering business. He hadn't thought of Long Island City. I said, there are REIT benefits. There are benefits that you don't pay taxes. There are other situations, and it's more conducive. And Long Island City is a great commute. The negative of Long Island City right now, they're under retail. They don't have the adequate retail to meet the infrastructure. But downtown Brooklyn didn't have the adequate restaurants before, and today they're having much more.
I think it'll be slower in Long Island City. I think it's 10, 15 years, maybe 20, till it has the street life that Brooklyn has. But it'll be there, and Cornell will be a huge push for that.
Cornell, the effect of Techni on Cornell on Roosevelt Island will have an effect on a variety of things. It'll have an effect on Manhattan near the ferry, near the tram and the train, because over there, that section of the Upper East Side, and eventually when the 2nd Avenue subway is completed in the year of the new generation, 5,000 years from now, that'll have an effect. But Hudson Yards is a market also that we're talking about, and you have a site over there.
Look, Hudson Yards is, it's a snowball now, and land prices are tremendous. Just the price for air that's not coming out of the city, out of the park, is it's huge, and rents are spiking. But I will say that the retail will increase in value in Hudson Yards as you see that park move northward. So people are buying projects that are going to be along a park that doesn't exist now, because that whole frontage on both sides of Hudson Boulevard will become prime retail.
Yeah. No, look, I think when Neiman Marcus makes a commitment to go there, I saw it, and I unfortunately I used to write against it. I never thought the Time Warner Center would do that well, and it's really done well, and the restaurants and everything else. And, the city, look, downtown Brooklyn, downtown Manhattan is doing so well today over there. Have you ever looked at Lower Manhattan in that?
I have not been a fan, but I think it's really making a change now that's permanent. And I see that as a interim step for people going to Brooklyn. I think as the advertising agencies moved down there, and Condé Nast was a pioneer in Times Square. Now they're a pioneer for media downtown. I think that's going to be a wave to come.
Lester, any?
Well, I think part of our bullishness on Staten Island is exactly what Doug just talked about, and that's Condé Nast moving 5,000 employees down there, and a lot of those employees not able to afford the rents of Manhattan, looking for places. And sure, Jersey City will be a competitor to us, but we think we'll be able to offer them a price point with a beautiful view, and amenities.
Well, but you do bring out a very interesting thing, and I'm going to be doing a show in a couple of weeks on Jersey City. Jersey City, brand new luxury towers are $40 a foot. And it's a 10-minute trip on the ferry, depending over there. And they are competing. You know, the mayor, who's been on my show and who is going to be on the show again, you know, he doesn't like to be called the sixth borough, but many people consider Jersey City as the sixth borough.
That's exactly what they're looking to be, the sixth borough. And so we'll compete with them, but our price point is in the 40s.
You're building a specialty hotel, and Staten Island has a need for hotels. One of the, you know, effects today, which is being hurt, is that we've put on so many hotel rooms and Airbnb. So the effect of Airbnb on the hotel industry in certain markets is there. Have you seen that? What do you know, Uber, Airbnb, and technology is having an effect on the city of New York in many aspects.
I think it's got to be long-term, you know, major disruption to the hotel business here. I've never taken part on it as a user, but everybody raves about it who's used it. So,
you know, it's interesting. In one of my roles with New York Community Bank, I've inspected buildings, and I walk into buildings up near City College, and I see suitcases outside, and I say, "Oh, it's another Airbnb building." So I think, you know, in summation, as I said earlier, developers have this DNA to develop, and I think the four of you and many people, including myself, are bullish on New York City. People want to come here, as Mitch said. This is the place to be. And with development, we need all the different types. And the studio business, you and all the other guys are doing well. And this is made in New York City. And I'd like to thank Doug, Mitch, Joe, and Lester. And I'll see you next week.